The sun was red and cold on the alien planet Zarkalon. The sky was always cloudy, filled with blue mist. Strange trees grew like metal wires. Twisting into the air, deep in the jungle, there was an ancient ruin. Old stones, black and heavy, stood like broken teeth. At the center of the ruin, a giant sword was stuck in a stone. It was not made of any known metal. It glowed faintly, humming like it was alive. The aliens called it the Blade of Judgment. They believed it was cursed. Many tried to lift it, warriors, kings, even machines. But no one could move it. They said the sword chose its owner. And no alien was ever chosen. Then one day, a small ship landed near the jungle. It was not an alien ship. It was old, rusty, and human. Out stepped James Carter, a space explorer from Earth. He wore a broken helmet, a dusty jacket, and a look of tired hope. He had been traveling through galaxies, looking for lost history, and now he had found something strange. James walked into the jungle with his scanner. He felt the air was different. Here, like something was watching. Beside him walked a small alien guide named Kiri. She was short, with 4 fingers and bright yellow eyes. "That place is forbidden," Kiri said, pointing at the ruins. "No one goes there," James smiled. "That's usually where the truth hides." He stepped into the ruins. The wind stopped. Even the birds were silent. The stone sword stood tall before him. It looked like it had been there forever. Cracks in the stone glowed with soft blue light. James walked closer. Kiri stayed back, her body shaking. "You shouldn't touch it," she whispered. "Many have died trying." James looked at the sword. He didn't feel fear. He felt pulled, like something inside the sword was calling him. He slowly reached out and touched the hilt. Nothing happened. Then suddenly, the ground shook. A wave of light burst from the sword. The ruins lit up with old symbols. Kiri screamed, "What did you do?" James stepped back, breathing fast. The stone around the sword cracked. The sword moved just a little, but it moved. For the first time in centuries, it had reacted. Then, a voice echoed through the ruins. It spoke in a deep, ancient language. Kiri didn't understand it, but James did. It said, "Heir of Earth, you have been seen. The trial begins." James looked around, confused and shocked. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Kiri was frozen in fear. "Only you heard it," she whispered. "No alien ever hears the voice." Sirens began to blare in the distance. The alien guards had detected the energy pulse. They were coming fast. "We have to go," Kiri said, pulling James away. "But the sword, no time. They'll kill you before they let you touch it again." They ran through the jungle, vines and roots snapping under their feet. James looked back once. The sword was glowing in the mist, like it was watching him. Suddenly, a red drone flew overhead. It scanned them and fired a warning shot. Kiri pulled out a small device and jammed the drone's signal. "We're not safe," she said. "They think you've activated a weapon." James felt a strange heat in his hand, the one that touched the sword. He looked down and saw a mark glowing on his palm like a symbol. It was the same symbol from the ruins. "What is happening to me?" he whispered. "The sword has chosen you," Kiri said, her voice serious now. "It hasn't chosen anyone in 10,000 years. James shook his head. "I'm just an explorer." Kiri looked at him with wide eyes. "Maybe you're more than that." Behind them, the jungle was alive with movement. Soldiers, drones, and creatures were coming. The whole planet had just changed, because one human had touched the forbidden sword. But James wasn't scared. He felt something growing inside him, a spark of power, a sense of destiny. He didn't know what the trial was, or why the sword reacted to him, but he knew one thing. This was just the beginning. The jungle didn't sleep that night. Strange lights blinked in the trees, and the air felt heavy. The animals stayed silent, hiding in their nests. Even the wind moved carefully, as if the forest itself was afraid. Somewhere deep in that darkness, James Carter and Kiri were running. Behind them, red drones chased through the branches. Above them, glowing satellites searched for human heat signals. But the strangest thing of all was happening inside James's mind. He could hear a voice, not outside but inside his thoughts. It was clear and strong, yet not human. It spoke in an old language, but James understood it like it was his first. "You are not chosen by chance," the voice said. "You were always meant to come." James shook his head as they ducked under a fallen tree. Kiri looked at him worried. "You're hearing it, aren't you?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes," he said, "and it knows me." They reached an old cave hidden behind a curtain of moss. Kiri pulled back the vines and led him inside. "This place is safe for now," she said. "It's one of the old shelters before the Empire took over." James sat on a rock and held out his hand. The glowing symbol from earlier was still there, bright, warm, and pulsing. Kiri stared at it with fear and wonder. "That mark," she whispered. "I saw it once before." "Where?" James asked. "In a story," Kiri said. "About the first human who came here." James frowned. "Another human?" "Yes," she nodded. "But it was thousands of years ago. No one believed it was real." James closed his eyes. The voice returned again, stronger now. Images filled his mind of a tall human warrior, a battlefield covered in metal, bodies, a sky torn apart by warships, and the sword glowing like a star. James gasped and opened his eyes. He was sweating, breathing hard. "The sword," he whispered. "It showed me something." Kiri leaned closer. "What did you see?" "Earth," James said, "but not as it is now. It was powerful, feared. Then something broke it. Outside the cave, thunder rolled, but there was no storm. It was the sound of ships landing nearby." "We don't have long," Kiri said. "The sword. It's not just a weapon," James said. "It's a memory, a warning, a test." Suddenly, the symbol on his hand lit up brighter. The voice spoke again. "You must awaken the trial," it said, "or this world will fall again." Before James could ask what it meant, the cave wall behind him cracked. Stones shifted, revealing a hidden passage. Inside was an ancient lift, still humming with faint energy. Kiri stepped back, shocked. "This wasn't here before," she said. James walked toward it, drawn like a moth to fire. The lift opened silently. On the wall was the same symbol as the one on his hand. Without thinking, he placed his palm on it. The machine came to life, lights blinking, gears turning. Kiri hesitated. "That path is not for us," she said. "Only for the marked." James looked at her. "Then I guess I go alone." The lift began to descend slowly. As it moved deeper into the earth, the voice grew louder. "You will face fear," it said. "You will face yourself." The walls changed as he went lower. Carvings appeared showing humans in armor, standing with swords, facing alien armies. It was a history no one told, a history someone wanted to hide. James felt his heart beat faster. He knew this wasn't just about a sword. It was about the truth. And maybe the future of Earth. The lift stopped with a soft click. The door opened into a glowing chamber. In the center stood a mirror, tall, old, and alive. James stepped forward, and the voice spoke once more. "Your first trial begins now. Face the one enemy you fear most." The mirror shimmered, and James gasped. He saw himself, but twisted, darker, filled with hate and fire. The mirror. James stepped forward, holding a version of the sword, black and burning. "This is who you become if you fail," the voice said. James clenched his fists. "I'm not afraid of myself," he said. But the mirror. James smiled with sharp teeth. "Then fight me." It didn't feel like a dream. It didn't feel like reality either. James stood face to face with himself, but not the version he knew. This copy of him had red eyes, darker skin, and a cruel smile. He looked like James, moved like James, carried a hunger for destruction. "This is your trial." The voice echoed through the chamber. "Defeat the shadow, or become it." James took a step back. His darker twin raised a sword made of black flame. James didn't have a weapon, just his shaking fists, but something deep inside him whispered, "You don't need one, not yet." The dark copy swung first. Fast and brutal, James ducked, rolled, and barely missed the burning blade. Every strike from the shadow cracked the floor. The chamber shook like it was alive. James ran, dodging the fire strikes, trying to think. He wasn't just fighting a fake version of himself. He was fighting every mistake, every doubt, every fear. The shadow laughed. "You are weak," it hissed. "You think the sword chose you out of destiny. No, it chose you to test if humans are still worth anything." James stopped, breathing hard. "Maybe I am weak," he said, "but I don't run from the truth." Then the voice returned, calm and ancient. "Face the fear, accept the pain, and the blade will answer." The black sword slashed again, this time grazing James's arm. Blood ran down to his hand. It dripped onto the chamber floor, glowing like molten silver. Suddenly, everything froze. The mirror shattered behind the shadow James. From the shards, light poured out. A real sword, not a copy, rose from the ground. Its blade shone like a star, its edges humming with energy. James reached out and grabbed it. The moment he touched it, his mind exploded with images. He saw Earth before it fell. Tall towers, powerful ships, humans walking among stars. Then war, betrayal, silence. His ancestors didn't vanish. They were erased. The sword pulsed in his hand like it had a heartbeat. The shadow roared and charged. But now James was ready. Steel clashed with fire. This was not a fight between two people. It was a battle between past and future, fear and hope. With one final strike, James slashed through the dark version of himself. The shadow screamed, turned into smoke, and vanished. The chamber calmed. The ground stopped shaking. The voice returned, now sounding almost proud. "You have passed the first trial," it said. "Your blood has awakened the blade of memory." James looked at his arm. The wound was gone. In its place was a new mark, a symbol of Earth surrounded by stars. The sword floated back into the air. This time it spoke, not in words, but in feelings. It told him there were more trials ahead, and each one would unlock something buried deep in human history. The lift behind him opened again. Kiri stood there, eyes wide. "I felt the ground move," she said. "What happened down here?" James held up the sword. "It showed me the past," he said. "It showed me what we lost." Kiri stared at the glowing blade. "No one has ever passed the trial of blood," she whispered. "Not even our strongest leaders." James looked at her. "I think the trials were made for humans," he said, "not for aliens." They climbed out of the chamber together. Outside, the jungle was still but tense. Ships circled overhead like birds waiting for prey. James hid the sword beneath his coat. He knew it wouldn't stay hidden for long. As they moved through the vines, the sword pulsed again. It guided them, not with words, but with direction. It was leading them to the next trial, the trial of echoes, but someone else had felt the sword awaken. High above the planet, in a floating throne ship, the alien emperor opened his eyes. "The blade has chosen," he said. "Send the seekers." Back in the jungle, James stopped walking. He didn't know why, but he felt watched. The next trial was waiting, but so was war. Asterisk flames danced in the dream, but they weren't fire from destruction. They were torches lining a long hall of stars. James stood in the center, holding the sword. Around him floated images, holograms, memories, lost pieces of a forgotten Earth. He saw a child reading under moonlight, a woman commanding ships. From space, old men building machines that touched the sky. Then everything turned black. The light of Earth vanished, covered by lies. And then he heard the voice again, softer this time. "You are the spark," it whispered. "The flame never died, it only slept." James woke up, sweat running down his back. The sword rested beside him, still glowing faintly. Kiri sat nearby, watching the jungle, her small hands holding a scanning device. "Another vision?" she asked. James nodded slowly. "I saw Earth," he said, "as it once was." Kiri looked at him, unsure. "Why would the sword show you that?" James picked it up. "Because Earth is part of this planet's story. They continued deeper into the jungle. The sword now gave James feelings, hints when danger was close. It wasn't speaking in words anymore. It was guiding him like an ancient memory trying to wake up hours later. They reached a ruined temple buried under vines and stone. Symbols covered the walls, and James recognized them, not from books, but from dreams. The same symbols he saw in his vision. "This place is older than your empire," James said, Kiri. "Touch the carvings carefully. These are human marks," she said in shock. "But no human civilization was ever recorded here." James walked into the temple, and the sword hummed louder. In the center stood a glowing ring, broken into pieces. It looked like a portal, half dead, half sleeping. As he approached, the pieces floated and joined. The portal activated for a few seconds, showing a broken sky filled with falling ships. "What was that?" Kiri asked, stepping back. James stared into the image. "It was the Great Collapse," he said. "The moment Earth lost the stars, suddenly, a figure stepped through the portal, tall, glowing, and transparent. It was a human, but not made of flesh. It was data, memory, and echo. "Welcome, carrier of the blade," the echo said. "You are the first in thousands of years. Who are you?" James asked. "I am Commander Lyra," she said. "I served in Earth's last sky fleet. This sword once belonged to me." James held the blade tighter. "Why did we fall?" he asked. The echo's voice softened. "We trusted the wrong allies," she said. "We shared our technology, our skies, our peace. But the Galactic Council feared us. So they erased us." Kiri's eyes widened. "You mean the Empire knew?" The echo turned to her. "The Empire was built on silence," she said. "Your leaders still hold the truth in secret rooms." James stepped forward. "Then why give me the sword?" "Because fire must return to the stars," Lyra replied. "Earth's flame was never meant to die out. It was meant to spread." The echo raised her hand. A wave of energy burst from the portal and entered James's chest. Memories flooded him, flight controls, old Earth codes, battle plans. He now carried more than a sword. He carried knowledge that could start a revolution. But outside, the jungle trembled. Ships descended through the clouds. The Emperor's seekers had found them. Kiri grabbed James's arm. "We have to run," she said. "They're jamming the air." But James didn't move. He looked at the portal, now fading, and then at the sword. "I'm not running," he said. "I've seen the truth now. This isn't just about lifting a sword. It's about lifting a people." Kiri hesitated. "Then what now?" James turned to her, eyes burning with a calm fire. "We fight," he said, "and we make them remember who we are." As the first seeker drones entered the temple, the sword pulsed bright. Energy flowed through the stones, lighting the walls. With Earth's forgotten flag, the seekers fired, but the energy shield activated. For the first time in centuries, Earth technology stood against the Empire again, and deep inside the sword, something smiled. The flame had returned, and this time, it would not go out. The sky tore open with fire. It wasn't lightning, it wasn't weather. It was war. From above, the Empire sent down its steel birds, fast, cold, and armed with weapons that could erase forests in seconds. In the jungle below, James stood in silence. The glowing sword in his hand flickered like a warning light. Beside him, Kiri held her breath as trees cracked under falling metal. The seekers had found them, and they had not come to talk. "This is it," James said. "They're afraid now." Kiri looked at him, her voice shaking. "You just lit a fire under a sleeping god." James gave a small smile. "Good," he said. "It's time it woke up." They ran deeper into the ruins, guided by the sword's pull. Beneath the ground was an old human outpost forgotten by time, buried and broken, but not dead. Doors opened when James approached. Lights flickered. On after centuries of darkness, the sword was unlocking Earth's past, piece by piece, inside the outpost. They found what was left behind, half-functioning drones, silent monitors, dust-covered armor. But there was one thing that still pulsed with energy. A ship, hidden under vines and stone. Old, scratched, but unmistakably human. Its name barely readable on the side, the Ember Star. James placed the sword into the central console. The ship groaned like it had just taken a breath after sleeping for ages. Lights came on, systems checked in, a hologram appeared. A woman's face, gentle and serious. "Pilot not recognized," she said. Then the sword glowed, and her eyes widened. "Blade detected," she continued. "Welcome, Guardian." Kiri stared in shock. "The ship still works?" James looked around. "It does now." They powered up basic systems, enough to scan the jungle and intercept signals. What they found changed everything. There were other humans, crash survivors, explorers, prisoners from long ago, all living in hiding, spread across this planet like whispers. And now one of them held the sword. One of them had awakened the call. "We're not alone," James said. "We never were." They sent out a pulse, a message wrapped in old Earth code, a call to gather, to fight, to rise. Some answered. Tired voices came through the speakers. "We thought Earth was dead," one said. "We thought we were forgotten." James stood before the console, the sword resting at his side. "Earth isn't dead," he said. "It's just waiting to be remembered." The Ember Star system slowly came back online. Shields flickered. Weapons hummed. Engines whispered promises of speed. But the Empire was already closing in. Outside, dropships landed with heavy steps. Soldiers in black armor marched through the trees. Alien beasts growled beside them, half organic, half machine. The Emperor had sent his elite to crush the spark before it became a fire. James watched their movement on the old radar. He didn't panic. He had something the Empire didn't understand. He had the sword, yes. But more than that, he had belief. Kiri activated the ship's speakers. A voice rang out across the jungle, James's voice. "To anyone who still remembers Earth," it said. "To anyone who still dreams of freedom. Now is the time." The rebels began to arrive, quiet steps through thick roots. Faces painted in dirt. Eyes shining with hope. Humans, aliens, who had turned against the Empire, and those who had nothing left to lose. James met them outside the ship. "You're not soldiers," he said, "but neither am I. You're not perfect, but neither is Earth." He raised the sword. "But we fight, because we remember." Then the jungle lit up with laser fire. The battle had begun. James led the charge, dodging beams, deflecting shots with the sword's strange energy. The sword responded to his movements like it knew him. It hummed louder the closer he got to the enemy. Rebel drones rose from the ground, activated by the Ember Star. They struck from above while James struck from the front. Kiri hacked the enemy's air support, jamming their controls. The Empire's troops were strong, but not ready for this. Not ready for human fire. Not ready for human rage. Not ready for James Carter. As the smoke rose and the screams faded, one thing became clear. This was not the end. This was the beginning of something bigger. James looked at the sword, now glowing brighter than ever. The trial had changed him. But war was the true test, and this test was far from over. Asterisk, the sky didn't fall all at once. It cracked slowly like glass under pressure. First came the thunder, then the ships, dark, silent, shaped like blades. They cut through the clouds and blotted out the stars. The Empire had arrived, not with messengers, not with warnings, but with fire below. In the heart of the jungle, James Carter stood atop the Ember Star. The sword at his side was pulsing like a heartbeat. His face was calm, but his eyes were flames. Around him stood the rebels, humans, defected aliens, forgotten machines. Outnumbered, outgunned, but no longer afraid. Kiri tightened the straps on her battle gear. "Their main fleet is in orbit," she said, scanning the readings. "They're preparing a planetary strike." James nodded. "Then we make them hesitate," he said. The Ember Star rose from its cradle of roots and ruins. Its engines shook the ground, stirring dust and memory. It had not flown in 500 years, but it remembered how, just like Earth, it remembered what it once was. Above the treetops, anti-air cannons opened fire, Red beams streaked the sky. Ships exploded like falling stars, but for everyone. They took down. 5 more came. James watched the battle unfold with grim focus. Inside the ship, old files began unlocking, triggered by the sword's presence. Kiri stared at the screen as footage played. Humans standing in peace beside alien leaders, signing unity pacts, sharing science. Then came betrayal secret meetings, invasions, disinformation, and then silence. Earth wasn't destroyed in war. It was erased in shame. James clenched his jaw. They didn't fear our weapons, he said. They feared our ideas. The sword glowed brighter. Its energy linked with the ship's system's awakening defense protocols. The Ember Star was no longer just a ship. It was now part of James. It moved when he moved, fought when he fought. Outside, rebel forces pushed forward, using guerrilla tactics, hacking enemy drones, turning the jungle itself into a trap. But the Empire was relentless. It sent down Titan's giant war beasts, powered by old tech and dark science. Each step shook the land, each roar silenced hope. James flew low above the battlefield. He opened the Ember Star's side hatch and jumped down. He landed hard, sword drawn. A Titan charged him, firing plasma bolts the size of small cars. James rolled, deflected with the sword, and ran up its arm like a flame on oil. He reached the head, drove the blade deep, and jumped clear as it exploded. The rebels cheered, but the battle was far from over. Back on the ship, Kiri received a signal, faint, hidden in static but clear. It was an Earth beacon, one that hadn't activated in centuries. It's coming from the other side of the planet, she said. A hidden relay station. James returned to the ship. Blood on his coat, but fire in his heart. If we reach it, he said, we can wake the old network. And once that happens, other humans might hear us. The Ember Star turned toward the mountains. The sky above was now burning, lit with war. But beneath that chaos, something bigger was happening. Old satellites blinked for the first time. In ages, forgotten AI nodes whispered to each other. Scattered fragments of Earth's lost colonies stirred awake. The flame was spreading inside the Ember Star. James sat alone for a moment. The sword floated in front of him, humming gently. He closed his eyes and spoke, not to the ship, not to Kiri, but to whatever listened from deep inside the blade. Why me? He asked. The sword responded not with words, but a memory, a human child long ago, looking at the stars and saying, one day we'll come back. James opened his eyes. We're coming back, he whispered, not as conquerors, but as reminders of what we were. The ship shook. A missile exploded nearby. Kiri called out from the cockpit. They're closing in. James stood, sword in hand. Then let them, he said. This time we fight in the open. This time we fight not to win, but to be remembered. The Ember Star climbed into the fire-filled sky, its engines screaming like a long-lost anthem. Above them, the Empire's command ship waited, cold, black and full of fear it refused to show. James looked up. The sky was burning, but it would burn with purpose now, not in defeat, but in return. The stars blinked. Then one by one, they opened their eyes all across the galaxy. Long sleeping satellites powered up, forgotten data streams reconnected. In the darkness between systems, old Earth signals began to hum. It had begun, the return. James Carter stood at the edge of the Ember Star's bridge. His sword floated beside him, glowing like a living memory. The planet below burned with battle, but the real war was now above. The Empire's capital ship loomed in orbit, giant, cold, silent. Its hull was covered in the symbols of conquest. Its command bridge watched Earth's sword ship rise like a ghost. They're hailing us, Kiri said, her fingers moving over cracked controls. James didn't reply. He stared through the viewport. He was not the same man who had stepped into that jungle. The voice of the Emperor came through the speakers. It was calm, measured, and full of power. You are human, the Emperor said. Yet you wield something that was never meant to return. James stepped closer to the console. "I didn't come to take back power," he said. "I came to take back truth." The Emperor paused. "The galaxy has peace," he said. "Earth nearly ended that once. Let the past remain buried." James looked at the sword. "Then why are you afraid of a man with a blade?" he asked. Silence. Below them, rebel forces pushed the Empire back. Alien rebels, human survivors, even some Empire soldiers who remembered Earth's kindness. They all fought under the rising flag. A flag once erased, now glowing in the sky. Kiri stood beside James. "The beacon is ready," she said. "One pulse will reach every old Earth relay in this quadrant." James held the sword to the ship's core. "Then it's time," he said. "Time to make them remember." The sword merged with the Ember Star's system one last time. A pulse fired across the galaxy, an ancient signal wrapped in memory, images, sound. History proof that Earth lived, that Earth mattered, and that Earth had never stopped burning. Across distant worlds, people saw the truth. Children asked why they never learned about humans. Leaders felt old guilt rise. Empires built on lies began to tremble. Inside the capital ship, the Emperor watched the wave spread. He knew the damage wasn't physical, it was belief. And belief could not be stopped with ships. James activated the final command. The Ember Star charged its last weapon, the voice cannon. It did not destroy, it transmitted raw memory. A beam of Earth's forgotten voice, straight into the heart of the Empire. The capital ship dimmed, its lights flickered. Its soldiers hesitated. They were no longer sure who the enemy was. The Emperor gave one final order: destroy the sword. But the cannon had already fired. It didn't hit the ship, it hit the truth. And the truth tore through lies like fire through frost. The battle paused. A strange silence fell. The capital ship powered down. The Emperor walked off the bridge. He had lost not to weapons, but to memory. James stood still, breathing in the silence. Kiri turned to him. "What happens now?" she asked. James looked at the stars. "We rebuild," he said. "Not to conquer, but to connect." He took the sword and walked to the Ember Star's core. The blade no longer glowed. It had done its part. It was time to rest. He placed it back in the chamber where it once slept. The ship dimmed gently. The flame had passed from metal to people. Days later, the planet stood calm. Flags of many species flew together. Statues of soldiers, human and alien, stood side by side. James did not stay to lead. He walked into the wild with Kiri, back into the stars, looking for more forgotten truths, more lost echoes of Earth, and far, far away. On another silent world, a second sword stirred in its stone, waiting for the next human who dared to remember.